So I was the fight coordinator on the new Marvel movie Thunderbolts. And the director, Jake Schreier, taught me a huge lesson about storytelling in just one sentence. It changed how I approach every fight scene and every piece of content that I make. A big part of being a fight coordinator for movies is the previs process. And this is basically where the stunt team creates action sequences or fight concepts in a studio, a stage, or even just a warehouse. We build fake sets out of cardboard boxes so that we can kind of lay out the geography of the scene. That way we know there's a sink that goes here, there's a kitchen table that goes over there. That way when we're choreographing, we can choreograph with these elements in mind so that we don't run into problems later when we get to the actual set on the day. From here, we choreograph and we shoot the fights and the fight concepts, as well as we rehearse and shoot any gags there may be, as well as any other stunt-related piece that's based on our interpretation of the script. And then as this moves forward, it becomes a collaboration with the director so that we can make sure that this is fitting into his or her vision for the film. So in a nutshell, we choreograph the fight scene, we then shoot it cinematically on our little mirrorless cameras like it's a movie. We shoot it in a way that we feel best represents the action in the scene. We then edit it together with any necessary VFX or sound design that will help us convey that idea. It's then pitched to the director where they give us their notes and feedback. We take those notes and feedback and we revise and rinse and repeat this process until we land on something that they're happy with. Well, there was one fight in particular that Jake wanted shot a very specific way. And as a fight coordinator, kind of like I said before, you try to shoot things in a way that you feel best suits the action that's being displayed. And it's of course just your opinion, this is all subjective. So you tend to focus on the moves and the cool choreography. You tend to focus on the camera movement and making sure that it's dynamic and has energy. And it's a challenge sometimes to not let your personal style bleed into your work, but sometimes this works out in a good way. Sometimes they'll use your shots or the angles that you chose for the previs and they'll recreate those on the day, and that's what ends up being what goes on screen, which is pretty cool. But after a few tries with this specific previs, Jake said something to me that I will never forget. He said, "For this fight, I'm not as concerned about the moves as I am being right here so that I can see what she's going through as this fight progresses." And that hit me really hard. You see, as a stunt person, I try my best to not get lost in the sauce when it comes to prioritizing action beats over the story, because at the end of the day, the audience is probably gonna forget 90% of what we choreograph anyways, but they should never forget the story. So a lot of the time what this amounts to when it comes to storytelling within a fight scene is making sure that we don't lose track of the briefcase that is a major plot point in the movie, or making sure that the objective of the fight is all about getting that secret key card that the scene is about, instead of the cool combo and the flip that we put in the middle of the fight. But this feedback that Jake gave me was so specific that I think that it probably changed the way that I look at my job and fight scenes in general forever. And it also gave me some pretty valuable insight into why a lot of the things that we thought were really cool probably end up on the cutting room floor. I can't even tell you how many projects that I've been a part of where they shot all the angles and covered the fights in really interesting ways and then chopped it to bits in the edit. But what's interesting about this, and to refer back to what Jake said he wanted to see in the Thunderbolts previs, is that what tends to live on in the cut, at least in movies with strong storytelling, is right here. It's those pieces of the fight that we as the audience can see what the character is experiencing. And there's a big parallel that I think we can draw here from the movies that we see in the theater to the content that we create online, because at its core, good content is all about storytelling. And I think that it can be really easy to fall into the trap of trying to make things look as good as possible, trying to make sure that our videos have cinematic lighting or cinematic color grading, and losing sight of the fact that the story that we're trying to tell or the theme of our video is getting lost in the process. And trust me, I like to make things look as good as possible, just like the next person. But at the end of the day, if we make something that makes our audience feel something and changes their perspective, that's what they're gonna remember. That's what they're gonna take with them when they leave your content and move on with the rest of their day. So yeah, Jake's one sentence off the cuff lesson that I'm not even sure that he knows he was teaching changed how I approach every fight. And honestly, it changed how I create. So the next time that you're filming something, whether or not it's a fight scene or a reel or a vlog, don't just ask yourself, does this look good? Ask yourself, what is this character or person going through? Because that's what your audience is gonna remember. I hope this helps.